Time for a look at what's making headlines here in France, and I'm joined by Florence Villeminot in the studio.
Hey,
Good morning. You're starting out with a word on French politics. Today marks Emmanuel Macron's 100 days in office. The president, meanwhile, is vacationing.
That's right. He's getting a little R&R in Marseille. Now, several papers are reporting that the presidential couple is having to fight off not a swarm of mosquitoes, but of paparazzi. If you read about it here in Le Parisien, they're talking about how the Macron couple is the #1 target of paparazzis. In fact, yesterday, the president filed a legal complaint against a particularly insistent paparazzo for allegations of harassment and attempted invasion of privacy. Now, this photographer has actually been talking to the press, and he said that he is outraged because he was treated like a criminal. That's what he says. It gives the impression that the president is going to war with the press.
Now, it's been a complicated summer for the president. After soaring in the election, his opinion ratings have started to slip.
Indeed, they have. And you can see on the front page of L'Opinion here, they're talking about how there is a shadow of a doubt, not caused by a beach umbrella for Macron, but by what looms ahead. Now, L'Opinion talks about what they call a humiliating poll that has come out just as Macron is marking his first 100 days at the Élysée Palace. So according to this poll, only 36% of French people are satisfied by Macron's actions so far. Now, if you compare that to the previous president, François Hollande, who, of course, wasn't such a very popular president himself, he was more popular than Macron at the same period of his presidency. 46% of people at the time said that they were satisfied by François Hollande. So you can see 36 compared to 46. That's why L'Opinion calls it such a humiliating poll. You can see here L'Opinion saying that clearly Macron is the victim of what they call the curse of the first presidential summer. And in this cartoon, you can see Macron here depicted as Brice of Nice, a little bit of French culture for you, Brice of Nice, which is quite a popular comedy, very highbrow comedy here in France about a surfer from Nice. Nice, of course, is not really known for having big waves, so you can see Macron here saying, it's not my fault if there's not a big swell. Of course, he was hoping to ride on a wave, this wave of popularity he had immediately after the election. It seems like that wave is losing momentum.
Clearly is. Now, the president has his work cut out for him once he comes back from his vacation. The government is going to try and push through some controversial reforms on the economic front. This, as the economic situation in France is actually improving.
It is a kind of hard sell for the government. You know, now that everything's getting better, we're going to change everything, essentially. Now, what you can see here in Le Figaro is an interview with the Interior Minister, Gérard Collomb, who essentially defends the government's plan, promises that these upcoming reforms will bear fruit. You can see this quote here on the front page. You can't continue down a path that drove the country to 3 million job seekers. So he's insisting that things need to change. Now, inside you can read more about how Gérard Collomb is defending the government's track record so far after the first 100 days of Emmanuel Macron. And he has a message for critics of Macron after such a short track record. He says, you know, when you're in the heat of the moment at the very beginning, of course you're going to be open to criticism. And you can see that quote there in that interview. The government prefers dialogue, even if it's a rough dialogue, to any kind of breakdown. Of course, we'll have to see if that holds come September when all these changes are expected to happen.
You're moving on to another story now that's getting a lot of attention here in France. On Monday night, a man rammed his car into a pizzeria to the east of Paris.
Now, of course, France has been on high alert ever since a series of terrorist attacks, so that's why this story is getting so much attention in the press. Details are starting to come out about the driver. French authorities say that though it's apparently a deliberate act, it seems to have nothing to do with a terrorist act. You can see here in Libération, they're talking about the driver. The suspect was not known to intelligence services and has no criminal record. And you can see here in their title here that he was psychologically unstable. Essentially, he wanted to go to prison. And so apparently that's why he drove his car into the pizzeria.
Now, moving on to something completely different. French universities, according to the latest world rankings, are falling back.
That's what you can read here on the front page of the business paper Les Echos. Now, this is according to the Shanghai ranking, the academic ranking of world universities, a well-respected classification that just came out with their 2017 ranking. So last year in 2016, France came in 7th, and this year it's come out 8th with only 3 universities in the top 100 universities around the world. Why has France taken a step back? Well, inside Les Echos, you can get more details. Les Echos essentially blames difficulties in trying to pull together different institutions across France. Essentially, France has a hard time competing with powerhouses like in the US and in the UK. And indeed, according to this ranking, the US comes out very much on top with 48 universities in the top 100 and the 2 top universities in the world, if no surprise really, Harvard and Stanford.
Clearly the fees are not the same. Moving on to a quick word of sports now, where France's women's rugby team is doing quite well in the World Cup.
Indeed it is, and the team is getting quite a lot of attention in the press. The 15 de France, that's the name of the rugby team in general, so the 15 de France féminin here. They could be headed to the semifinals. They've got a match tomorrow against Ireland. Now, L'Humanité praises the team full of competent players that really had to fight against prejudice to become such good players. Rugby isn't really known for being a feminine, well, a sport for women here in France. It's developing, and so L'Humanité here praises the team and wishes them best of luck tomorrow against Ireland.
Florence, thank you very much for that. Florence Villemino there.